We're being siloed into a bubble. Our likes empower the algorithm. It feeds us what we want, to keep us engaged. It wants to sell our attention. We slip deeper into a constraining narrative. But we must break free. We must burst the bubble. Truths will be learned. Cognitive dissonance will make our hearts and heads ache. Different perspectives will bring us wisdom. Some truths will be hilarious, others painful. But we must be free. We must break into the DisAlgorithm.
All right, it's Monday morning. My cat Lucky had passed away, so he wasn't doing well. I was planning on taking him to the vet again this morning because he was just getting more and more weak. He was passing urine, but he was just wetting himself. So, but around 3 or so, he didn't look like he was breathing or anything anymore. His eyes were open, his mouth was open, and just not responding to anything. And then later, about 5 o'clock, he was stiff. So he's gone. Just sucks losing a pet. Well, we're gonna look at my feed here, and I guess the DOJ is having a press conference about medical fraud, so we're gonna look at that. Let's just go to my feed, check out some stuff. Oh, there was a shooting that happened yesterday with the firefighters. Some firefighters were ambushed, so we could look at some of that. There's someone that had everything on there. Yeah, right here.
Meantime, we do have a Fox News alert now. There is an active shooter situation developing in Idaho. As you look at your screen right now, multiple firefighters have been ambushed and shot while responding to a brush fire in the city of Coeur d'Alene. Reports say multiple people have been injured. Police are asking people to avoid this area, and a press conference is scheduled for later this hour.
My name is Matthew Gagliotti,
we will bring you.
and I'm the head of the Justice Department's Criminal Division.
Today's June the 29th.
Thank you all for joining us today as we announce the largest coordinated healthcare fraud takedown
I am the
in the
sheriff of
history
Cooney County.
of the Department of Justice. Today marks a decisive moment in our fight to protect American taxpayers from fraudsters and to defend the integrity of America's healthcare system. We are announcing today charges against 324 defendants for their alleged participation in healthcare fraud schemes involving approximately $14.6 billion in false claims submitted to Medicare, Medicaid, and other healthcare programs. In a takedown this large, I can't possibly describe all of the work that went into dismantling each scheme, but there are 4 key points that bear emphasizing. First, let me be clear about what these healthcare fraud schemes mean for every hardworking American family. These criminals didn't just steal someone else's money. They stole from you. Every fraudulent claim, every fake billing, every kickback scheme represents money taken directly from the pockets of American taxpayers who fund these essential programs through their hard work and sacrifice. And when criminals defraud these programs, they're not just committing theft. They're driving up our national deficit and threatening the long-term viability of healthcare for seniors, disabled Americans, and our most vulnerable citizens. This enforcement action involves the seizure of cash, as well as luxury vehicles and properties, returning real money to American taxpayers and to our government healthcare programs. Second, we are seeing a disturbing trend of transnational criminal organizations engaging in increasingly sophisticated and complex criminal schemes that defraud the American healthcare system. As part of this takedown, we've identified and charged defendants operating from Russia, Eastern Europe, Pakistan, and other foreign countries. These individuals have infiltrated our healthcare system to steal American taxpayer dollars. As just one example, we dismantled a scheme involving a sophisticated operation run from Russia and Eastern Europe that strategically bought dozens of medical supply companies in the United States and submitted more than $10 billion in fraudulent healthcare claims to Medicare. To make matters worse, these perpetrators used the stolen identities of more than 1 million Americans spanning all 50 states to perpetrate this scheme and submit these false claims. But I'm pleased to report that federal agents intercepted and arrested key members of that organization at U.S. airports and the U.S.-Mexico border, cutting off their intended escape routes. The days of transnational criminal organizations using the American healthcare programs as their personal piggy bank are over. Third, this takedown resulted in criminal charges against 74 defendants, including medical professionals who fueled America's deadly opioid crisis for personal profit. These are not isolated instances of poor judgment. These are calculated schemes designed to exploit Americans struggling with addiction while enriching the very people who were duty-bound to help them heal. We charged pill mill operators who prescribed unnecessary opioids. We dismantled networks of corrupt pharmacies that existed solely to distribute drugs to addicts and dealers, feeding the addiction crisis that has devastated so many American communities. This is not healthcare. It is a staggering breach of trust. And under my leadership, the criminal division will prosecute these criminals as aggressively as we would any drug dealer, because that's exactly what they are. Fourth, many of the defendants charged as part of this takedown specifically targeted our most vulnerable citizens, elderly Americans in nursing homes, individuals with disabilities, those battling serious illnesses, and more. For example, our prosecutors charged 7 defendants, including 5 medical professionals, in connection with approximately $1 billion in fraudulent claims to Medicare and other healthcare benefit programs for performing medically unnecessary skin grafts on dying patients as they were seeking to spend their final days with dignity and peace. That conduct is exactly as callous and disturbing as it sounds. Patients and their families trusted these providers with their lives. Instead of receiving care, they became victims of elaborate criminal schemes. Today's takedown marks a historic day. In addition to the tireless work of our Fraud Section's Healthcare Fraud Unit, this extraordinary effort would not have been possible without the law enforcement agencies with me here today. Health and Human Services, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Drug Enforcement Administration. And of course, countless partners across the federal, state, and local law enforcement community and dozens of United States attorneys' offices. Thank you to all who made today possible. Now, despite these historic achievements, we aren't resting on our laurels. We're making advancements to stay ahead of their criminals and their illicit schemes. That is why today I'm also announcing that we are working with our partners at FBI, HHS OIG, and other federal agencies to create a healthcare data fusion center to revolutionize how we detect, investigate, and prosecute healthcare fraud. These efforts will be led by the Criminal Division, specifically the Fraud Section's Healthcare Fraud Unit, and comprised of data specialists from the unit's data analytics team. The Fusion Center will break down information silos using coordinated data analysis to enable our investigative teams to quickly identify and dismantle emerging fraud schemes, preventing money from going out the door. Today's enforcement action represents the largest healthcare fraud takedown in American history. But it's not the end. It's the beginning of a new era of aggressive prosecution and data-driven prevention. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Acting Inspector General Juliet T. Hodgkins, Department of Health and Human Services, Office of the Inspector General.
Good morning, and thank you to Mr. Gagliotti and to the Department of Justice for inviting me to join here today. Combating fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicare, Medicaid, and other HHS programs is our mission at the Office of Inspector General. I am proud to be here today representing the tremendous work of our criminal investigations team in this takedown. This unprecedented healthcare fraud takedown is more than twice as large as any past one, having stopped national and global fraud schemes alleged to have resulted in over $14 billion in intended losses. The results announced today were only possible, though, through a strong partnership of federal and state agencies. By working shoulder to shoulder, we harness the best information, tools, and expertise to find criminals, no matter where they hide, and no matter how they try to disguise their crimes. I would especially like to thank DOJ, CMS, FBI, DEA, and our other federal partners that are here today. I would also like to acknowledge the state Medicaid fraud control units, as well as the strong public-private partnership between government and private insurers to combat health fraud. Simply put, criminals go where the money is. Through information sharing, government and the private sector help each other to more efficiently stop fraud. And under our watch, criminals will not be allowed to enrich themselves with dollars meant to improve the health of Americans. One massive fraud scheme that was charged as a part of today's takedown involved multiple durable medical equipment companies that billed Medicare over $10 billion for equipment that patients did not need or that they never received. The good news for the American people is that the alleged criminals in this scheme never got their hands on most of that Medicare and Medicaid money that they tried to steal. Instead, the government coordinated to use our collective tools and authorities to protect taxpayer dollars. This takedown also demonstrates, though, our commitment to shield Americans from harm. The actions taken by our partnership stopped individuals and entities that were alleged to have used stolen medical identities from over 1 million patients to submit false claims. They preyed on patients who needed addiction services, billing for treatment that was never received. They illegally diverted prescription opioids, millions of pills that continue to fuel the devastating opioid epidemic. But as fraud schemes span borders and jurisdictions, OIG and our partners respond quickly and effectively. And as fraud schemes increasingly exploit technology, we use cutting-edge investigative methods to detect fraud, prevent losses, and protect patients. Before I close today, I must take a moment to applaud the exceptional work of the dedicated OIG professionals that participated in this takedown. Every day, these outstanding law enforcement professionals do the dangerous work of holding criminals accountable. Thank you for your service to the American people. Thank you so much, and I will turn the microphone over now to Dr. Mehmet Oz, the CMS Administrator.
Let me put on my clinician's hat first, because it is my culture, my story. I'm a heart surgeon. And when I hear about this fraud, I think about patients who have trusted us, people who are at their most vulnerable time looking for the protection of our services. And too often these criminal entities have tried to pierce that trust. When you walk into the Health and Human Services building not far from here, there's a quote from Hubert Humphrey, from whom the building is named. And it says, "It is the moral obligation of government," that's what we're doing here today, "it's the moral obligation of government to protect those who are at the dawn of their life, our children, those at the twilight of their life, our seniors, and those living in the shadows, folks who are having trouble, like the substance use disorder mentioned a second ago by Juliet." I want to applaud all the agencies that collaborated today, because when President Trump signed the executive order on fraud, waste, and abuse, a pledge to crush this reality, this is exactly what he had in mind. At Health and Human Services, under leadership of Secretary Kennedy, we have strived to break down barriers and silos in every way possible. What you're witnessing on stage today is exactly that. The American government at its best, making sure all of us work together for the same common purpose, in this case, especially, expressly to protect those who are our most vulnerable. Because all great societies are judged by how they take care of those who are vulnerable, and we are great people. We will do that. So to the OIG, the DOJ, who's hosting us, the FBI, DEA, and other agencies that were engaged. And let me ask Kim stand in the back. Kim Grant runs, Chief Operating Officer and Deputy Administrator at CMS. She runs the fraud unit, and I'll speak about some of the work she and her team have been doing in my comments today. It is, and you'll hear this said by all of us, and we should, the largest Department of Justice healthcare fraud takedown in history. The fact that it's even possible that you could have $15 billion to play in this endeavor is shameful. But that's how we're being attacked now, and it's not done by small-time operators. As you're hearing about and you will read about, these are organized syndicates who are designing to hurt America. And why do they hurt our healthcare system? Well, CMS is probably the largest target of all, responsible for about $1.7 trillion of disbursements. So it's a big target on our side. And they can pierce the veil of protection by just getting identifier numbers from our seniors or Medicaid recipients or others, and thus use those tools, use you, the American people, to hurt us. What we're doing today is changing the paradigm. Not just going after bad guys and putting them behind bars, but actually getting ahead of these schemes so the money never leaves our bank account. Because by the time we find out that these criminals have stolen and the money has left the building, it's already offshore somewhere in some foreign country's vaults where foreign leaders are rejoicing in the fact they took advantage of the American people. That's why we use the word crushing fraud, waste, and abuse. Because this is not just a nice thing to do in an accounting pickup that we can claw back money. It doesn't happen that easily. And this is a modern era. There are modern tools being used to attack us, and we need even more modern ways, including AI, which I'll speak about in a second, to take them down. The oversight has to be unrelenting. We can never let our guard down. While we're sitting in here right now, there's hundreds of thousands, probably millions of efforts being made to hack into CMS and our system, and we have systems designed to prevent that, to make sure the people who need us the most will find that we're there to protect them. The CMS Fraud War Room that I want to announce that Kim is going to lead is an effort as an example of this. It's prevented most of the fraudulent efforts to take money out of our agency. So most of the money never left the door. So most of the money was never stolen, even though we know you were trying to do it. And when I speak to you, when the president signed that executive order, he put a bunch of sheriffs, new sheriffs in town. And that's what you're looking at on stage today, and many others like us who are not going to tolerate this anymore. We're stopping stolen taxpayer money from leaving the door, stopping it in its tracks. Just when I was leaving the room today, the offices today, I was hearing about over $100 million that we've stopped from leaving the agency just in the past few weeks. There are 27 providers that are under active prepayment review, which means we're not going to pay their money until we verify that they're actually doing their jobs correctly. There's examples from telemed schemes in Florida with clinics billing for activities that they're not really, we don't believe, providing. There's a cardiology provider, and please help me understand this, who's providing cardiology services in person in Georgia and Nevada at the same time on the same day. Unless teleporting is being made feasible, not possible, but it happens. The audacity to think you could get away with this highlights the fact that folks believe they could have taken advantage of the agency in the past. We're going to make sure it doesn't happen again. There are mental health clinics, listen carefully, mental health clinics providing skin substitute placement on their patients. Again, you're dealing with ulcers in a mental health clinic. These services are provided by an anesthesiologist. Improbable. Money's not leaving the building. You're going to have to prove to me that there's a clinical benefit of a psychiatrist telling an anesthesiologist to put a surgical graft on a patient. It's not going to happen. We need your help. That's my big plea. We need your help, the American people. Why? Over half of the whistleblower tips that we get for healthcare fraud, and over half of the fraud against our government is in healthcare. So we need your help, both to protect your own important information. Don't give it away because con artists come to your door and try to get it, but give us tips. You're going to hear all of us share opportunities that we have, but it only happens in healthcare because we know we have allies, the American people. We provide care to 68 million Medicare beneficiaries. 80 million Americans are on Medicaid or CHIP. There's another 20 million on the exchanges. There are a lot of people that will come to help us. So write this down, 1-800-HHS-TIPS. 1-800-HHS-TIPS. We have a URL, obviously, if you go to our website as well. And I'll leave you with one last thought. In addition to the massive fraud, especially from foreign entities trying to invade America using financial tools and criminal mindsets, we also have 25% of all of our money being spent probably subject to abuse. And that's not fraud. This is abuse and waste. Money not being used wisely. We just launched a new model called WISER with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation under Abe Sutton that is looking at ways for us to identify inappropriate use of services that are wasteful and should not be offered to the American people because they could hurt them. And they're certainly not providing value for these wonderful Americans whose health is being taken advantage of to generate higher savings, higher revenue, rather, for providers. We're not going to tolerate it anymore. We're going to use data analytics, real-time monitoring, and unhesitating and unwavering pursuit of the law to make sure this happens. I want to thank my colleagues on the stage and their agencies for all the wonderful work you have done. God bless you.
Good morning. Hello, my name is Christopher Delzato, and I'm the Acting Deputy Assistant Director for the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division that handles healthcare fraud. I want to echo what our speakers have said already and thank everybody who made this takedown possible. Healthcare fraud is not a victimless crime. Every dollar stolen through deceitful billing or unnecessary procedures is a dollar taken away from patients who truly need care and taxpayers who fund these critical programs. Schemes like those we're announcing today drive medical costs up, strain federal health care budgets, and ultimately impact every American who relies on Medicare, Medicaid, and other public and private insurance programs. It's also not just about financial losses. It's about patients being exposed to unnecessary procedures, false diagnoses, and delayed care. That kind of exploitation isn't just unethical, it's dangerous and has no place in our healthcare system. We can't tackle healthcare fraud of this scale alone. It requires a united response. That's why strong partnerships are at the heart of what we do. This initiative is part of a strategic and coordinated effort with the Department of Justice's Healthcare Fraud Unit of the Criminal Division's Fraud Section, Health and Human Services, Office of Inspector General, Drug Enforcement Administration, and other federal and state agency partners. From investigators on the ground to analysts tracking intel, forensic accountants tracing financial trails, and prosecutors building cases that will hold up in court, every agency involved plays a critical role. By leveraging these critical partnerships, it allows all of us to share intelligence in real time and connect the dots across multiple jurisdictions, not only in the United States, but around the globe. This initiative brought together expertise from FBI headquarters and 28 field offices across the country working side by side to identify the scope of the fraud and coordinate arrests. From fraudulent billing, COVID relief abuse, and money laundering to prescription drug diversion, these criminal networks are engaged in complex schemes that operate on a global scale, undermining our healthcare systems and fueling broader transnational criminal activity. The investigations announced today speak volumes about our resolve to root out corruption in the healthcare system and hold accountable those who think they can defraud federal programs without being caught. I want to talk about the numbers for a minute because they're not just large, they're impactful. They reflect the scale of the fraud, the reach these criminal networks have, and the urgent need to protect our healthcare system. 324 defendants were charged criminally, including 96 licensed medical professionals. 25 of whom were doctors and charged for their alleged participation in various fraud schemes targeting government and private health insurance programs. Over $14 billion in alleged fraud was billed to Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance programs. Unfortunately, those numbers represent Americans impacted in every state. Behind the numbers is a web of criminal activity that stretches far beyond our borders. The FBI's Operation Gold Rush resulted in the largest amount of loss charged in a healthcare fraud case brought by the Department of Justice. More than 20 members of a criminal organization based in Russia and elsewhere were charged for their roles in a $10 billion Medicare fraud and international money laundering conspiracy. The organization allegedly used a network of foreign straw owners, including individuals sent into the United States from abroad, who acting at the direction of others overseas, strategically bought dozens of medical supply companies that were enrolled in Medicare and located across the United States. After the organization gained control of the companies, it rapidly submitted billions of dollars in fraudulent healthcare claims that were never ordered by doctors, requested by patients, or provided to anyone. In doing so, the defendants are alleged to have exploited the identities of over 1 million Americans spanning all 50 states by using their confidential medical information to submit the fraudulent claims. This not only illustrates just how global these schemes have become, but how advanced and coordinated they are becoming. In Atlanta, 5 people, including 3 medical professionals, were charged with manipulating the price of skin grafts and forcing services on patients that were not medically necessary. In this case, Medicare was scammed out of $760 million. And in Phoenix, we opened an investigation after receiving a complaint about suspicious billing to Arizona Medicaid. It led us to a network of sober living homes that were supposed to be helping those struggling with drug and alcohol addiction, many of whom were Native Americans. Instead, this was a massive fraud scheme that billed for services that were never actually provided. The sober living home facilities owned by ProMD received more than $560 million for services that were not provided. Those are just some of the investigations that were part of this initiative. As these threats grow more complex and transnational, the FBI and our law enforcement partners must continue to evolve, stay ahead of the curve, and meet the challenges with equal force. Reducing federal healthcare spending, stopping fraud and waste, and controlling costs isn't just about budgets. It's about protecting the integrity of programs millions of Americans depend on. And we will not tolerate those who put personal gain above patient care. Remember, you could always report suspected healthcare fraud to your local FBI office or call 1-800-FBI-TIPS. And we count on you reporting those tips. Your vigilance plays a critical role in helping us uncover fraud, protect patients, and hold offenders accountable. Next, I'll turn it over to the DEA.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. Today's announcement represents a landmark victory in the fight against healthcare fraud and the illegal diversion of controlled substances. The Drug Enforcement, alongside our partners at the Department of Justice, FBI, HHS, OIG, CMS, and our state and local law enforcement agencies, took part in this unprecedented national takedown that uncovered more than $14.6 billion in intended healthcare fraud, as well as over 15 million controlled substance pills being diverted, a staggering abuse of public trust and public funds. Similar to DEA's core mission of protecting the health and safety of American communities, Americans also put their trust and their lives into the hands of our medical and healthcare professionals. And what we saw in these cases was the very opposite of that mission. Pills ended up on our streets. Pharmacists, doctors, and distributors fueled addiction, endangered lives, and illegally profited off the backs of Americans. DEA's investigations covered doctors, pharmacists, pharmacy owners responsible for the diversion of thousands of controlled substance pills like oxycodone and hydrocodone. These pills ended up on our streets, in the hands of dealers, and in the path of addiction. In other cases, DEA helped investigate providers who stole opioids intended for their own patients, diverted fentanyl from hospitals, and exploited vulnerable individuals seeking treatment. And we didn't stop there. In the last 6 months, DEA has charged 93 administrative cases seeking the revocation of pharmacies, medical practitioners, and distributors' authority to handle and/or prescribe controlled substances. This sends a clear message. If you use your license to harm the public, you will lose it. This takedown also shows how closely drug trafficking and healthcare fraud are intertwined. Whether it's criminal enterprises billing for medically unnecessary opioids or laundering the proceeds from sham clinics and pill mills, DEA is targeting the financial, pharmaceutical, and criminal infrastructure behind the epidemic. As we move forward, DEA will continue to collaborate across government agencies. Together, we are building a smarter, data-driven enforcement model, harnessing the power of artificial intelligence and forensic analytics to stay ahead of criminal actors. To those who think they can hide behind white coats or offshore bank accounts, think again. DEA remains relentless in our pursuit of those who poison our communities and exploit our healthcare system, all to line their own pockets with profit from others' pain. I too want to take a moment to recognize the remarkable work, commitment to healthcare and safety, and dedication of our DEA investigators and all our partners across the nation. Today's takedown is a milestone, but it's not the end. It's the foundation of what comes next. Thank you.
Mr. Gagliardi, you mentioned in your remarks that this involved more than 1 million stolen identities. Any idea of how those identities were stolen, what breach they were part of?
Can't identify the specific breach they're part of, but they are on the dark web, among other places. They're internet-based identities that are put up for sale. And frankly, what would happen in some of these cases is individuals who were not even seeing a particular doctor for any sort of specific care often got a medical device at their home and reported that. And so their device may have been somewhere on the internet, either from one breach or multiple different breaches, and these are collected by the organizations who then would send devices to individuals who never requested them.
Can I offer this? This is a very important point for the American public to hear. They knock on doors, and they'll tell you that they've got something for free, and then they get your number, and they're off to the races. So this is why folks should guard their numbers, especially their Medicare number, very carefully.
Question for Dr. Oz, actually. When you talk to anti-fraud experts in the private sector, they say that one of the reasons these transnational groups are targeting government programs to such a massive degree is because it's been relatively easy for them to do that using the stolen identities that you mentioned, because government agencies don't use the same kind of technology that Citibank does, and Amazon does, and Walmart does. It sounded like from what you were saying earlier, you're working to change that. You mentioned AI Can you talk a little more about that?
The WISER model, which is a CMMI model, much of the innovation in Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services comes specifically from the statutorily created entity of Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, as the name would state, have already launched a model. It is designed to use artificial intelligence and other more cutting-edge tools to address the fraud that exists in healthcare. And I have just 2 points on this I think are worth remembering. The reason that AI works so well in the financial system is because bank managers aren't fraudsters usually, so they're not very good at fraud, whereas fraudsters are really good at fraud. So you're asking people who don't study fraud, like in CMS, for example, Amy Brandt does not spend her whole life thinking how to defraud people. So she doesn't think the way a criminal mind might work. So we actually benefit tremendously, as has been the case in banking and other transactional businesses, if we can bring these newer technologies to bear. The other reality of healthcare is that we don't really penalize people for doing bad things. When they steal money, and they steal the health of Americans when they steal your money, because they're taking away resources that are vitally needed to take care of vulnerable Americans. When they do that, I think, not just criminal, but morally reprehensible activity, it's often a slap on the wrist. And that's an area where I think we should get more serious. Many of these fraudsters were able to get away literally outside the country, but even the ones we catch sometimes have remarkably impactful opportunities to escape real justice, and we have to change that as well. We also have to be serious. We've got to send a message. That's what today's press conference is about, and I'd love if you could echo that. We are taking this crisis to a whole different level. This is not going to be the same approach to healthcare fraud detection as has been evident, certainly for the last few years.
You mentioned that the intended loss was north of $14 billion. Can you say what the actual loss was?
$2.9 billion.
I wanted to follow up about the rise in these foreign actors that you're seeing participate in these schemes. How can you address a little bit more about how the U.S. can combat that when so many of these criminals are beyond the reach of U.S. law enforcement?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, the first thing we need to do is prevent more of the money from going out in the first place. Frankly, $2.9 billion actual loss on $14.6 billion intended loss is pretty good. It's less than a sixth, and we were able to prevent that by getting ahead of schemes early. So the best thing, the best antidote here is prevention rather than enforcement. Second, we're able to capture people who were coming into the United States on temporary bases, some of these straw owners and people who own these companies. Then we need to get serious sentences on these individuals to send that deterrent message. And the third thing we need to do, and which we are doing, is we're fighting for the extradition of many of these individuals. We hope to see them face justice in an American courtroom. So what we need to do, and the goal of all of these taken together, is to make sure that people don't view this as some sort of calculated risk. It won't pay off, essentially, if we prevent, if we enforce, and if we get significant sentences.
On the transnational element to this, are these people that are just mostly looking to make as much money as they can, or is there a national security risk too to having people from these transnational groups involved in this fraud?
Yeah, we see. So astute question. So basically, in some instances, we see it's a sheer fraud scheme for money and related purposes, particularly at the lower levels of the pyramids. We do have individuals who we have concerns about other activity they're connected to.
Can you say anything more about that?
No.
One of these cases involved defense overseas using artificial intelligence to basically create recordings of Medicare beneficiaries. Can you talk about how this AI explosion and the kind of confluence of fraud and how you're kind of marshaling resources to attack that? And separately, Dr. Oz, you mentioned that this is largely about messaging and making clear that this kind of fraud is unacceptable. I wonder, does it undermine that message when President Trump recently pardoned Lawrence Duran, who was convicted in what was at the time the largest Medicare fraud scam in history? Does it undermine that at all?
I'll start with your first question. So, yes, we are concerned about the criminals' advancements in technology here, obviously, and it's something that contributed to some of the schemes we saw here. So let me say a little bit more about a word that we're doing on the Data Fusion Center that I think is significant. Basically, a lot of the information that is relevant to stopping these schemes is stored across different government agencies. And what the Data Fusion Center intends to do is put it all in one place so that we can recognize these patterns earlier on. So if you're looking at a graph for some particular kind of back brace, for example, and you see a hockey stick spike in the sales of these in some particular location in Miami, say. That's a very powerful lead for us to go after and to try to root out the problem before it grows. So yes, the criminal schemes are getting more complex, and that's why we need to advance with it. And the Data Fusion Center is a big part of that. And breaking down information silos across agencies is another significant part of it.
The president has been very clear that he wants this fraud, waste, and abuse crushed. That's the word that's used. And I'll give you one concrete example of how he has done that. DOJ is not just about cutting waste and fraud within government. DOJ has been actively involved at CMS in helping us address places where fraud is existing that we never thought to look. And that's the kind of opportunity that's created when you actually break silos down, which is probably the single biggest opportunity that this administration has created. Thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's good. They're going after some criminals and taking care of the fraud that's happening in our medical system. I know that a lot of our money goes towards health insurance and Medicare, Medicaid. And so when people are taking advantage of that and using it in fraudulent means, it's really hurtful to the whole system. So I'm glad they're going after people. It's Thomas Sowell's 95th birthday. Wow. Bob Byland's U.S. visa has been officially revoked by the State Department. Whoops. Okay, let's go back to the Idaho. Because there has been a development with that earlier today.
On scene that we're trying to make heads and tails out of what was occurring. And during this time, we exchanged gunfire with the suspect, and we also got information. We received information from the White House, from Kash Patel, the FBI, from Governor Brad Little, and also Raul Labrador, that anything that we needed, that they would absolutely respond. So we had a lot of assets that came into that command post, and then we had a briefing about 6:30, about 18:30 hours at the command post, and in that briefing we kind of gave an update to the agencies that this is still an active shooter, and that as soon as this individual could be neutralized, that he should be neutralized and the threat should be eliminated as quickly as possible. At approximately 1940 hours, we did have information that let me back up just a second. We had a cell phone activation that was in the same spot since about 3:16, and that it was in the same area, and we honed in on that cell phone, and we saw that there was a male, appeared to be deceased, with a weapon nearby. So we have currently one dead shooter. Based on the preliminary investigation that was being conducted, keep in mind we had a fire that was rapidly it was approaching the body, so we had to scoop up that body, and we had to transport that body to a different location. But based on the preliminary information, we believe that is the only shooter that was on that mountain at that time. So there is no threat to the community at this time. Based on the trajectory and based on the type of weapons that this individual had that we could recover, we believe only the one shooter. We did enforcement officers that were on scene that were trying to.
This is a procession that happened this morning. That's probably gonna get copyrighted. I have to take that off. They just released a picture of the Idaho gunman. He's not a Muslim. Okay. I don't know if that's actually him. You know what it looks like? It looks like, oh, what's his name? I can't think of it. Never mind. So it looks like he might have taken his own life. I don't know. Well, at least they found him. Alright, we'll hear more about if he shot himself or if he was taken out by an officer or something. So far they're saying that all they know is that it's the one shooter. So be interesting to hear. I don't know. Crazy's crazy. I don't know if it would be interesting. Interesting to hear why he did that. Sometimes I think we put too much emphasis on why these people did it. Just they're crazy. They should be put down, and it should just be left at that. It's like I don't even care about their message getting out there. It shouldn't matter to anyone. They're a nutcase. Two men facing charges after a reported aggravated assault involving two 15-year-old juveniles in New Caney, according to the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. Deputies say the incident happened on June 16th after the victims were lured through a popular social media platform to a parking lot of the New Caney ISD football stadium. Investigators say that once they were at the location, the suspects produced a pistol and assaulted the victims in a vehicle. After the assault, the juveniles informed their parents, who immediately contacted the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. Detectives from the Special Victims Unit launched an investigation and identified 19-year-old Darville Reginald Allen and a 20-year-old Abdul Salim, both from Kingwood, as suspects. Warrants were issued and both were taken into custody without incident. Allen was arrested by Montgomery County Sheriff's Office SWAT team which includes members of U.S. Marshal Service Gulf Coast Violent. Okay, just cuts off there. Oh, that sucks. Sucks that they did that. Your wife is South Indian. She grew up eating rice with her hands. You're literally married into it. Who would say that? So dumb. Trying to think what else happened. Monday Fun Day. Not that it really matters, but a terribly untalented writer for badly failing Forbes magazine, Dan Alexander, who probably can't get a meaningful job in the business, has written so inaccurately about me that it is ridiculous. Many others also. The media is mostly fake news. But Forbes doesn't even try to get things right. I haven't spoken to these sleazebags in years. They don't want the facts, and they're so inaccurate purposely about everything. I would have thought Forbes would be dead by now, but it continues to hang around like a bad disease. Isn't it owned by a hostile nation? Anyways, that's what happens when you have bad reporters with evil intentions. Eventually, the publication dies. I've happily seen it over and over again. Okay. I'm trying to get that big, beautiful bill passed before July 4th.
To help
Just
prevent
coming
the
up.
bill from proceeding. Bring in now Tennessee Republican David Kustoff. He's with us to explain what the heck is going on. So, Congressman, what objective do the Democrats hope to accomplish by throwing in this 900-page stumbling block to help prevent the bill from proceeding on course?
Good morning. First of all, thank you for having me on this morning. What they want to do is try to derail the Trump agenda. I mean, the one big, beautiful bill is everything that Donald Trump campaigned on in 2024, from making the tax cuts permanent, to no tax on tips, to no tax on overtime, to making sure that the border is secure, to making sure that we have enough border security agents to be able to do the job that they've been doing so well, unleashing American energy. And this is the week to get it done. President Trump said he wants this bill on his desk by July 4th.
Bring in now Tennessee Republican David Kustoff. He's with us to explain what the heck is going on. So, Congressman.
Hopefully they get that passed, I guess. Democrats are planning a nationwide sick day where they pledge to stop working, spending, and producing. Sounds good. Make the Democrat-led cities collapse even faster.
A system that without us, what if millions of us stopped working, stopped spending, and stopped producing all at the same time? There's a movement brewing. It's called the People's Sick Day, and what it is a 3-day economic blackout. That means no work, no shopping, no production, just pause. 3 days where we remind the system that without us, nothing moves. But here's the twist. We're not giving out the dates until 48 hours before, because we don't want to give the corporations time to plan and stop us from having this happen. Because let's be honest, if they knew what we were planning, they'd shut it down before it even started. This isn't a protest. This is a strategic disruption to the machine that feeds off of our hard work and labor. If you want to be a part of it, go to thepeoplessickday.com, join the Discord, and join the movement. This is how we stand up against what is happening in our country. We need to shut it down. We need to shut it down. So go to thepeoplessickday.com, sign up for the Discord, and you can get more information there.
So dumb.
What if millions?
Update: public corruption will not be tolerated. As director, I vigorously pursue bad actors who violate their oaths to all this. Yeah, what about Epstein, though? You're supposed to do that. You're supposed to release the files and start prosecuting the offenders that procured children through Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and abused them. And all this other stuff just seems like a distraction. It's like, okay, this is great, but what happened to what you said was going to happen day one? Let's go into the comments and see. Yeah. I don't think he's protecting Trump. I think it's all the other people that are on there. That it would just bring everything down, which I'm fine with it. That's what our system hinges on. That needs to be taken down. They need to arrest everyone. Even if that is Trump.
Alright, but have you heard free, 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 free? Alright, but have you heard this one though? Death, death to the IDF, 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 death, death to the IDF. Hell yeah, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be, will be, inshallah, it will be.
What a dumbass. Yeah, I don't like what Israel's done to Gaza, but you can't just be saying kill the IDF. That's crazy. USNS Harvey Milk ice out of San Francisco. Oh, that's Scott Wiener, California State Senator. Scott Wiener poses with child sexual abuser Harvey Milk image while holding anti-ICE sign to side with criminal illegal aliens. This is the Democratic Party, yeah. It's all wrapped up in sexualizing children and making it so that they can consent to everything. That's the end goal, is they want to be able to say, well, the child consented to me doing perverted stuff to him. People still doing that to Teslas. Who's Bob Byland? Let's look it up. Bob Byland. Oh, it's that guy that was saying, that was chanting that. That's what you get, dude. Is this guy. British rap duo. Oh, that's what you get, dude. Yeah, should have been more careful with your visa. Can't be saying that. The U.S. will not issue visas to foreigners who support terrorists. Senior State Department official. Yeah. Alright, let's break into the DisAlgorithm, see what the other side is saying. Popping the bubble. Let's go, let's see. What is this?
To the rich in our nation's history. That's what we're staring down in this so-called big, beautiful bill. And sure, if you're already wealthy, this bill is going to be great for you. If you earn more than $715,800, congratulations! You will get a tax cut of over $50,000. That tax cut alone is significantly higher than the $39,500 that the average Michigander earns in an entire year. Are you a foreign investor? Congratulations. Collectively, you will all get $23 billion in tax cuts next year alone. Are you in a position to leave more than $7 million to your heirs? Congratulations. You will get a cut to the estate tax. But how does this bill pay for all of this? By cutting the services that you rely on.
If you earn tips, you will get no tax on your tips. If you have to work overtime, you will not be taxed on your overtime. All the current tax breaks that regular Americans enjoy will be kept and codified into law. Instead of going away and, just feeding the system that robs you. So, they're acting like only rich people benefit from this. It's everyone. Everyone's going to benefit.
This big bad bill cuts more than $200 billion from food assistance, potentially affecting 4 million children and 7 million adults nationwide. In Michigan, SNAP provides vital food assistance to over 1.4 million Michiganders. That's approximately 15% of our state's population. SNAP dollars fuel $2 billion in economic activity supporting farms and grocery stores, especially in our rural communities. But colleagues, proponents of this bill, and I have heard it here today, will argue that it's just about cutting so-called waste, fraud, and abuse, and that these cuts are necessary, and that enacting these cuts will benefit everybody. That argument is a flat-out lie. The University of Michigan economist Justin Wolfers analyzed the impact of all of the Trump policies combined. The cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and SNAP found in this big bad bill, the tax cuts here that overwhelmingly benefit the rich, and Trump's reckless tariff policy that adds cost to the food and the goods that so many of us rely on in our daily lives, with that additional cost not borne by the country of origin, not borne by the importer, not borne by the retailer, but passed on to you. Combined over the next 10 years, here's how those policies will impact you. If you are in the lowest 10% of earners making just under $19,000 a year, you will lose $2,600. If you're in the lowest 25% of earners making $40,000 a year, you will lose $1,600. If you're the median income earner, if you make $80,000 a year, you will lose $1,200. If you're in the top 75% of earners making $1,770, you will lose $600. If you're in the top 80% of earners, you will lose $500. Are you picking up on a trend here? But if you happen to be in the top 10% of earners earning over $250,000 a year, congratulations, you will gain an average of $7,200. 90% of Americans will lose money over the next 10 years to give the wealthiest 10% of Americans more money. That's insane. 50 years of trickle-down economics has shown us clearly that it simply does not work. The wealthiest Americans are wealthier than they ever have been before, while just about everyone else, from low income to middle class, is struggling to make ends meet. But do not fret, colleagues, because today we have an opportunity to stop this big bad disaster before it starts. I ask for your vote on this resolution today to send a message to our counterparts in Washington that we in the Michigan State Senate, those of us closer to the people on the ground, that we speak for Michiganders. Let's fight for all of our residents. Let's safeguard Medicaid. Let's safeguard Medicare. Let's safeguard funding for the Affordable Care Act. Let's safeguard cost savings for Michigan families on their energy costs. Support this resolution to say, from an independent state like Michigan, that Michigan legislators speak for Michiganders, not for the wealthiest 10% of us.
And it's just funny that they just can't point to anything that proves their point. You know, they just say that Trump is lying. But here we go. In the bill, it says you're not going to be taxed on your tips, you're not going to be taxed on your overtime, and that your taxes overall are going to be reduced. And they just keep on saying that it's going to be more harmful to people. It's like,
today we
so
are on
dumb.
the verge of the single.
They just go, don't believe the lies. Everyone is going to be more poor. It only helps the rich. And then they don't prove it. Yeah. I have news for a lot of you hateful maggot. I mean, who's hateful, man? When Republicans cut Medicaid, it's not going to only affect us liberals and Democrats. In fact, there are a ton of Trump supporters in rural areas and red states who will be affected. Like Trump's tariffs, we warned you. Yeah, Trump's tariffs worked, man. We got great deals. They're bringing in billions of dollars. All right. But if you are a MAGA person that is getting your benefits cut, you know, you should speak up and let people know. But until then, I don't think it's happening. They're just cutting the fraud out of there. And these people are fighting so hard to keep the fraud for the Democrats that are just stealing it. It's not like these people, it's not like Brooklyn Dad is going to get any of that money. He's just totally wants the Democrats that are stealing from everyone to get it. Whatever. Oh yeah, whatever. This guy with his stupid memes that don't mean anything. None of it's right. The founding fathers predicted the U.S. would have an oligarch direct dictator one day, and they were pretty explicit about how to deal with it. Yeah, wouldn't that include the Second Amendment? How are you going to fight your government, dude? Anonymous, how are you going to fight your government? If you believe your government is an oligarch, how are you going to fight them? How are you going to take them out? How are you going to remove them? Shouldn't you have a Second Amendment to do that?
During negotiation, and we just about had it done, and then they said we want enrichment. Enrichment doesn't. They had 3 main sites, and we knew they're going to have to either give them up. And I thought we could do it during negotiation, and we just about had it done, and then they said we want enrichment. Enrichment doesn't mean like air conditioning, and it doesn't mean to jack up your car. Enrichment is a bad word. And I said, you got so much oil, what do you need that for? And they said, well, we need it, and I wouldn't let that happen. I think people wouldn't have understood it if I allowed that to happen. So we had a 60-day talk, and that delayed them a lot. And then we said, let's go at it. And it just worked out. And we wanted to work out also for Iran. They were beaten up, and so was Israel. In all fairness, they were both very tight. We call it the 12-day war. That was an intensive war. So they had 3 main sites, and we knew they're going to have to either give them up. And I thought we could do it during negotiation, and we just about.
Enrichment doesn't mean like air conditioning. It doesn't mean jack up your car. Enrichment is a bad word. I don't know. He means enriching your uranium. He doesn't mean enriching your life or whatever. I spoke on the Senate floor. Hopefully you weren't near Tim Walz. Not even in his line of sight.
It kicks 16 million people off their health care. 16 million people
Oh, okay,
off their
show me.
health care. In order to finance tax cuts for the wealthiest,
Show me
in
these
order to
people.
give multimillionaires a $400,000 tax cut, that doesn't make the world a better place.
I wouldn't if it was
$4
real.
trillion in debt, $1 trillion of it is interest, which is going to make
That's
mortgage
not what's
rates go up.
happening,
It's going to
people.
make harder for young people to be able to maybe get their first house or pay their rent. It's putting it on their backs. It's putting it on their shoulders. That's why I don't see this as a big, beautiful bill. I see this as a big, beautiful betrayal of hardworking people of this country. Now,
No way.
what does this bill do?
Because it's untrue, that passage? No, but why did you remove it? Is it because it's untrue, that passage? No, this is something that I think is, I'm not going to talk about. I don't talk about personal meetings with world leaders, and I'm going to continue to stay there. But clearly, if you're taking it out of the book, it's because it's untrue. But why did you remove it? Is it because it's untrue, that passage? No, this is something that I think is, I'm not going to talk about. I don't talk about personal meetings with world leaders, and I'm going to continue to stay there. But clearly, if you're taking it out of the book, it's because it's untrue. But why did you remove it? Is it because it's untrue, that passage? No, this is something that I think is, I'm not going to talk about. I don't talk.
Kristi Noem accepted an $80,000 cut of what she raised for her nonprofit called American Resolve Policy Fund that promotes her own career. The puppet killer didn't disclose the income from the dark money group on her disclosure form, which is selected as DHS secretary. Someone get arrested. Someone. Can we have someone? Prove it. Arrest her.
The technology company, they are very, very wealthy people. It's a group of very wealthy people. But what I want to do is, and what I will do just sometime prior to the 9th is we'll
You have a
send
buyer
letter
for
to all
TikTok?
these countries. There's 200 countries. You can't talk to all of them. No matter how many people you have, you can't talk to all of them. There are no.
Just let TikTok go. Who cares about TikTok? Alright, let's see. Let's go to... Oh, what was a good one to search that we're looking at? Not the Idaho one. I'm gonna have to remind myself what to be looking for. Let me check. All the Bob Violence stuff. Let's check that out over in the DisAlgorithm. So Bob Violin. Yeah, but these guys are trying to get U.S. citizenship. They're not on the terrorist watch list. Israel is our ally. So in the DisAlgorithm, he's a hero. He is dropped by his talent agency, UTA. Ken is a partner and member of UTA's music leadership team. He oversees the booking and touring. Ken follows the IDF and multiple other Zionist accounts. Stand with us. All these. Well. You can't chant death to IDF and expect to keep your talent agency or your U.S. visa or whatever. Was it U.S. or was it the... It's U.S. visa, huh? Yeah, our DOJ was saying that they revoked it. Social Security does not increase our debt or deficit. Okay, we heard that. Big, beautiful backstab, the poor. Tax cuts for the rich. King Trump. They got such funny cartoons. It's time for all of us to stand up. Man, is there a worse governor? But he just says the right thing and everyone just goes, yay! But meanwhile his whole state is a garbage dump. And everything he does ruins it more. They still just go, yay! He called out Trump, hoo-hoo! What is this?
To serve in every community. I represent 67,000 pediatricians across the country who are going to bed and not sleeping because we are worried about the children that we are privileged to serve in every community across the country. We wake up every morning trying to figure out how we can support children. Let's be perfectly clear. This bill, it will cause devastating impacts to children. And while children only represent 22% of our population, they represent 100% of the future, and they will bear the brunt of most of the legislation in this bill. They will lose food through SNAP, and importantly, the entire pediatric healthcare delivery infrastructure is threatened with the cuts to Medicaid. And let me connect the dots for everyone in the audience. When we think about Medicaid, 50% of children in this country, yes, half of our children in every community, and it's more than half in some states, depend on Medicaid as their health care insurance. This is health care insurance and coverage for half of the nation's children.
Oh. Okay. She said children 8 times in that minute. That I counted.
I represent 67,000
Probably more.
pediatricians.
It's all just... It's all just a bunch of crying Karens trying to use your feelings against you. It's just all... It's just all, trying to think of the word. Can't think of the word. Anyways. Boo-hoo. They're taking the fraudulent people off of Medicare.
Of when you said 5 weeks ago, in 2 weeks, I will have new sanctions against Russia because they're not coming to the table. In 2 weeks, 5 weeks ago. So Donald, where's the sanctions? You said 2 weeks, man. 2 weeks. It's been 5. Like, what? I don't understand this. There's no way you just said things and didn't mean it. You also said a few days ago that you have a buyer for TikTok in 2 weeks, so we'll be watching that one too. Because right now, I don't know. I'm a little confused because you said 2 weeks for Russia. It's almost like you just say stuff and you don't mean it. I don't know. There's no way that's true. All right. Waiting to hear.
Yeah, he's trying to get this bill passed, dude. Keep waiting. You'll hear about it when he's ready. Tom Tillis played Trump.
In the Oval Office, it's inescapable that this bill in its current form will betray the very promise that Donald J. Trump made in the Oval Office or in the cabinet room when I was there with finance, where he said we can go after waste, fraud, and abuse on any programs. Now, those amateurs that are advising him, not Dr. Oz, I'm talking about White House healthcare experts, refused to tell him that those instructions that were to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse all of a sudden eliminates a government program that's called the provider tax. We have morphed a legal construct that admittedly has been abused and should be eliminated into waste, fraud, and abuse. Money laundering. Read the code. Look at how long it's been there. It's inescapable that this bill in its current form will betray the very promise.
I don't know about you, but I love how Tom Tillis played Trump. Trump threatens him with a primary challenger, and he's like, bro, I ain't running for re-election, screw you, and then publicly exposes the White House staff for not keeping Trump in the loop. Who's running the country? Oh my gosh. That is not what he even said.
Your dishonor. Tonight, I say this to my Republican colleagues who are defending the indefensible. There will come a day when Donald Trump is gone, but your dishonor will remain. Tonight, I say this to my Republican colleagues who are defending the
And they just say whatever, man. It's so ridiculous. It's like Liz Cheney, dude. Your dad is Dick Cheney. Who would have thought the Democratic Party would be supporting the daughter of Dick Cheney and Dick Cheney himself and George Bush and just all the neocon garbage people that they were against for so long. As soon as Trump gets in office, they're just like, yeah, we're the new neocons. As long as you hate Trump.
Mr. President.
I recognize the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would like
That's all
to
they care
start
about.
by just taking a moment to thank the clerks who stayed up all night reading the amendment and getting us to this point. I know it was a long night and that we're not finished yet, but I want them to know that the Senate appreciates their dedication, their stamina, and their service. In just a moment, I'm going to make a point of order against the substitute amendment that I offered on behalf of Chairman
of the RECA Extension Act of
This
2022
is
inserting
dumb, man.
December
They
31,
provide no
2027.
context or nothing. After 16 brutal hours, Senate staff finally finished reading the one big beautiful bill out loud, cover to cover. Chuck Schumer forced the marathon session overnight. And what was the grand audience? What was the grand audience for this legislative theater? An empty room. Not a single Republican stayed to listen to the entire 900-page monstrosity. They're trying to ram through, and they want to rewrite the economy. They want to rewrite the economy in ink, but can't even stay awake for the fine print. Alright. That's why we shouldn't have huge bills. Normally, I would be against this, but I think they should pass it. I mean, all the stuff I'm hearing bad about it is just, nothing that they're pointing to specifically. It's just, oh, they're kicking blah 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 million people off Medicaid. It's like, yeah, prove it. That ain't what it's doing. 16 million people, blah blah blah. It's always these numbers, but they don't show anything to prove it. Adding 4 trillion to the deficit, 17 million. It was 16, now 17 million. Another million just got added on. Don't you know? 30% higher electricity costs. Biggest ever cut. I mean, they just got these dumb talking points. They don't ever explain anything. They don't ever show, okay, this person right here definitely needs Medicare, and they're going to be cut off because of such and such line here that says, that says it's going to happen. So they just go, 16 million people. Are they talking about the illegal aliens that are getting it? It's like, good. This guy's doing the freaking puppet tour over here. So kissing babies and and hugging wheelchair people and patting dogs and kneeling before coffins, and everyone's just going, "Oh, we used to have such a good president. Oh, you're so great." Yeah. Do you guys have any kind of memory at all? He was non-existent. Couldn't even talk. Couldn't get off a stage. Couldn't speak in front of people. Couldn't get through a sentence without flubbing it. And he slept all day on the beach, constantly on vacation, didn't talk to reporters. Just the worst policies in the world. Prices skyrocketed. And they just want to blame everything on COVID. Even though it was Democrat Party that kept us locked down the whole time. Trump wanted it to only be 2 weeks, but the Democrats were acting like he was killing people. It's like, so stupid. And they just forget everything. They just are so mentally deranged they can't remember anything that happened. Trump drools over reporter's beauty. Well, at least he's not grabbing and sniffing her hair. Says you're beautiful. If it was Biden, he'd be grabbing all up on her. Oh, I don't know what he sees. She's not that beautiful. She looks like a dude to me. Undocumented immigrants paid more taxes last year than Amazon GM. Oh, okay, let's keep our slaves. Let's keep our slaves for the economy. I mean, you guys just sound like the freaking South. They shouldn't be here working. All these people care about their taxes, man. They just, oh, give me taxes. Give me taxes. It helps our government. I love the government so much. So dumb. It's like, keep the money you earn. Well, I don't want to earn money. Alright. DisAlgorithm's pissing me off. Let's break out of DisAlgorithm. Learned nothing. Learned a bunch of feminist weaponized feelings. Alright. Well, I gotta go figure out what to do with my cat. Gotta go bury him or something. They want you to take it to the vet and have it cremated. It's like, I ain't gonna do that. I'm gonna dig a hole. And if there's utilities down there, I will avoid them. But I ain't gonna be told what to do with my cat's body. I'm gonna dig a hole and put him in it. And he's gonna go back to the earth, and we're just gonna mourn him.
Some truths will be hilarious, others painful. But we must be free. We must break into the DisAlgorithm.